overview, and we'd really welcome some feedback on the incident report changes that we've made, and we're looking at taking that a stage further this year as well. So really, just to introduce what the purpose of the incident report is, it might look quite straightforward, but it's really to support learning from mistakes, or learning from things that have happened. And that could be anything. If you remember with rebreathers, there was a cell problem years ago with specific cells. So it's to give information that can then help with any equipment issues and any personal learnings in terms of human factors, and feeding that back in, and can also inform how we change things. The real emphasis on this is that it's not to support blame or identifying somebody to blame for things. Things happen like they do in life, and it's actually what we can do as divers to support each other and move forwards. And that's why they really, really are absolutely confidential and anonymised when we move into the data side of things. Any diver can report. It's not just BSAC, and we do use third-party data from RNLI, RYA, other dive agencies as well, to collate those reports as much as possible. And we're always working with those agencies to try and get as much data and as good quality data as we can to inform divers and to try and support that. The other purpose is really for member communications, to continually try and drive safety in our own organisation and to inform members. And we do that in bits, taking things as we go along during the year from the safety blogs and articles that you see. We're often informed by the incident data that we come in, because we think those are the important topics that we should be talking to our divers about and wider in the field. And you'll see that, you know, we also bring those kind of things into presentations and webinars and conference, so that the information we're giving you is very much evidence-based rather than opinion or anecdotal. So what we've tried to do at the Go Dive show is, and we're doing it again this year, is take the incident report and actually look at maybe some trends and maybe some things we could do in the club to help promote safe diving. And we take that through, as you saw with the with Dan Orr, who we had come and talk at the conference previously, and it's all driving member communications, and as I said, really, really evidence-based rather than anything else. Then the other thing that it really supports is BSAC training updates. So some examples of what has happened in the past is looking at AS and how we do AS ascents and kind of the key takeaways for that, which is how we've ended up in the key points of where an AS should be stowed, recommendations for hose lengths, those kind of things for AS. And really recently it's been more along the lines of immersion pulmonary edema coming into our core training, as we've seen evidence of potential IPO incidents, and also some recent changes to oxygen procedures. So you'll notice that some of the informed things on oxygen has been to advise how slowly oxygen should be turned on, following advice actually from the industry, from some things in the industry that came back, and a paper that Martin Parker also wrote on oxygen fires. So it's really, really crucial for safety and driving our training updates. And it's part of our national governing body role. So our role is to collate that data and to do as much as we can to support the dive industry as a whole and present to our members, but we also present to outside bodies. So what you probably don't see is recently Jim and I did the incident presentation for the RNLI for their internal safety team. We also do it at BDSG, which is the British Diving Safety Group, which is a collation of stakeholders that for British diving safety. And Sophie and I were presenting the incident report and then also doing a webinar at Go Dive as well. So really pulling all of those different things together. So I think one of the questions that I would like to ask you, and I'm going to hand over to Sophie just to add anything into this section in a moment, is what do you want from us in safety communications? What would you like to see more of? How did you find this year's incident report? What kind of data-driven information would you like to see for us to support clubs regions and centres going forwards and safety. And that's one that you can put the questions in the chat and we'll come to at the end and have a bit of a discussion about as well. Sophie also does a lot of different things in different organisations, so also just going to ask for her thoughts on safety and how we do the incident reporting and how it's seen in the industry.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. What's really important, so I am a launch authority for the RNLI, and obviously that's quite a big key factor when we come to any incidents involving boats out in the water, and therefore the call on the RNLI to come and support. So I know that there's a body that does kind of look after the RNLI and give them kind of diving training updates, and that's a really good thing. But if you've got a local RNLI near you and you're either a part of that factor or you know of any of the people that are in there and they might not know too much about us as divers, it's really important that maybe you just go along to the RNLI hut or place where they are working out of, and maybe go and have a chat with them and ask them if they want to learn a little bit more about what happens about diving, because whilst they have their first aiders and everything else, they don't necessarily understand about diving incidents. So the more that they know about how to deal with us, if we have a problem, the better it can be. And there have been some really good examples of when they've when they've taken part in a rescue, and because there's been obviously divers there to help and support, that's great for them, but sometimes they want to know a little bit more about it. So do dig in and help them out, because it's a really good thing.
I think that's really valuable, and I think I wanted to just bring up as well, because we did say that people could put questions in beforehand, and one of the questions that came in today that they asked would be introduced this evening, and it probably fits in this section best, is a bit of a chambers update. So obviously there was a tender process last year for recompression chambers in the UK, and Whipps Cross unfortunately was unsuccessful, and 3 other areas, so the Northwest, the Northeast and the Midlands, were not issued contracts. The update on that is there's no final update yet as it stands, but the 3 chambers that we had no chambers in the Northwest, Northeast or Midlands that were awarded contracts, those chambers were asked to re-tender. They've been through a re-tender process and we're waiting for the outcomes of those re-tender processes. So as soon as we have an update, we will, and we really appreciate everybody that wrote to their local MP and helped us with that campaign. There is an update on Whipps Cross, so you may have seen we have released information on this as a safety blog. Whipps Cross was asked to open as part of an emergency procedure due to Chichester being unable to hold consistent service. So Whipps Cross is currently reactivated as a Category 1 chamber and has an extended 12-month contract. We're hoping that that will then move into further campaigning and to see Whipps Cross permanently open, but at the moment they're on an emergency 12-month contract and operating as a Cat 1 chamber. So the Northwest, Northeast and Midlands are still operating. They're on extended contracts. They haven't been offered a new contract. They're in the re-tender process. Their contract has been extended, so they are still continuing to provide a service. And as soon as we know more about those 3 areas, we will let you know. So that was one of the topics that we wanted to just cover off this evening. But another one that we really wanted to talk about was club participation. And so Sophie's really going to kind of take the lead on this. We get a lot of questions about basically how we club participation and how people can get involved. So one of the questions we get is kind of about responsibility of being a diving officer. Now, Sophie, you've been a diving officer and you're the national diving officer. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that entails and how you can facilitate diving?
Yes, sure. So I think quite a lot of people on the call probably have been or are diving officers, and so don't take it lightly. It's it's a big role, but some clubs don't have maybe huge amount of members that they want to bring into the fold, and so it's really important that the diving officer gets in touch if they don't feel they're getting any of the backup from their own branch that they need. So basically, the diving officer is responsible to me to carry out safe diving under the safe diving practices that BSAC put out. And if that's not happening, and it doesn't happen always, because there's people that want to go off and do their own thing, then you kind of need to be clear as to where you lie in your responsibilities. So anything that is a club dive that's posted up on the club website or posted up on the club notice board, if you're still on paper and pen, means it's a branch dive, and therefore that has to come under safe diving practices, and therefore your responsibility lies first and foremost to me to make sure that you carry that out, but also to make sure that or everybody in the branch understands that. And sometimes some clubs don't have that information. So there is a kind of diving officer's handbook. There's plenty of information on the web. But if in doubt, please get in touch, because we will absolutely point you in the right direction to make sure that where you feel maybe you've got members that want to go off and do their own thing, it might be fine, but it might not be, because they might be diving out of the kind of auspices of the safe diving practices. So, more importantly, question and ensure that you feel comfortable that the dives that they're doing are really important, or really come under safe diving practices, so that that you're comfortable with what's going on, and that if God forbid there were to be an incident, that your kind of back is covered by the fact that you carried out everything under safe diving practices. And I think that's what's really important. But some people get kind of pushed into the post. Don't feel, and any of you who are listening tonight, if you've got a DO in that position and they feel they're struggling a little bit, please tell them to get in touch with me and Sophie, or me or Sophie, or headquarters, and we will absolutely point you in the right direction to ensure that the standards that we want to keep as the national governing body are maintained in an appropriate manner. So get in touch. We are always listening and always happy to help and point you in the right direction.
I think it's really important to really remember that don't be overwhelmed by it, and don't feel like it's it is a responsibility, but at the same time you've got a whole support network. And the whole point about having this devolved responsibility and having a club system is that we've got all of this guidance, and this guidance helps support divers dive safely, it helps support diving officers, and it also means that Sophie is ultimately responsible because she's produced the guidance. So she's put this guidance in place, and this guidance is in place to help divers, and to help divers go club diving and to enjoy club diving. It's not a set of rules. We often get asked quite a lot, well, can you do this or can you do that? Safe diving is guidance, and the reason it's guidance is because circumstances are different, and this allows the flexibility within some safe diving parameters, which protects everybody, and means that diving can still be fun. You can still go in the club ethos without having an absolute on everything, because we know that the weather changes, the water temperature changes, the visibility changes, so we can't always say that if you dive this site it is this level. That's the whole point about a dynamic risk assessment, which we will come on to in a little bit, just with the next section, which we're going to talk about, which is what constitutes a club dive. So Sophie, what constitutes a club dive? I know this isn't a simple answer, but give us a bit of an outline.
So a club dive is any dive that is advertised within the branch. So whether it's by an email to everybody, whether it's by social media, or whether it's by something on the notice board putting up a club dive. So, for example, most clubs, what they do at the beginning of the season is they get their kind of senior divers together, and they go, right, what should we plan for the year? And people will go, well, I'd like to do 2 days at Littlehampton, or I'd like to do liverboard, or I'd like to take everyone abroad, or whatever. So anything that the club knows about effectively is a club dive. Plus, if you use your club gas, or you use any club equipment or the club boat, it's a club dive. If two people go, right, we're not doing anything, we're going to go away from the branch and we're going to just go to Egypt and go on holiday, then if they're not advertising it as a club dive, then it isn't a club dive. But the diving officer should be kind of still responsible to say, don't forget, listen to the briefs, dive to the depths that you're allowed to dive to under your insurance, and or the insurance of the country. But if you want to make it a club dive, then it is a club dive because you've advertised it within the club and you may or may not be using club equipment. So that's first and foremost the most important thing. And I think some people will offer up we're going diving, we've got club gas in our cylinders, but we're doing our own thing. It's absolutely a club dive because you've used club air or gas. And therefore the DO should know about it. So it can be a bit tricky. And if anyone is struggling, I can happily send you a massive load of notes as to what constitutes and doesn't constitute a club dive, because ultimately it lands on me when there's an incident, and I'm the one that's responsible to go to court and go, well, it was a bit interesting, but I don't think it was a club dive, or it absolutely was a club dive, and therefore the club is culpable through the diving officers. So we clearly don't want that to happen at all. So knowing where you stand is really important. So
I think it's worth mentioning though that if the DO is unaware, whilst it should be a club dive, if the DO is unaware, they cannot be responsible. But at the same time, why would you not want the DO to be aware of the diving? And there's ways and means of doing that. And the DO can put some rules in place where they say that anyone of a certain grade can do stuff as long as they're diving within safe diving practices. And ultimately, that is all BSAC diving should be within safe diving practices. And that's the kind of key guidance for club diving.
Yeah, and so there's some interesting things that have come up on the chat. So we can go through those all at the end, or
should we start with some of those now, because they're probably quite pertinent to the topics. So if I start with Dave Taylor's, an extract of the incident report in the form of a presentation would be welcome. That's not a problem. We have that, so I can get that onto the website. No problem at all. Edward Haynes has said he sees the DO role as a facilitator. Absolutely. What we don't want is people not going diving. We're divers. That's what we do. That's what the club side is. Kate has asked, what's the definition of a club dive? I think Sophie has covered quite a lot of that and will put a kind of snapshot together. Is there an online diving officer workshop planned? Sophie, do you want to answer that?
We can absolutely run one, or if you're coming to the dive show, we can have a chat on the stand. But I can absolutely give you that information. So, but it's quite a lot to talk about now.
So there are 2 diving officers workshops planned at the dive show, one on Saturday, one on the Sunday. We will be doing them quarterly online going forward, so we will schedule those in for diving. We've always done them for new diving officers, but I think we'll open them out as much as possible. Dave Taylor has asked, what do we do if someone persistently refuses to dive safely? Contact us at HQ for some guidance, and there's ways to address this, just to kind of formalise what the processes are and what the expectations are to try and get people on board, and to kind of start to work with the club and dive safely. So each circumstance is different for that, so it's a bit difficult to advise anything in particular, but we can absolutely help with that. What would you advise if divers diving abroad on holiday? Should they let the DO know? Ideally, you should let the DO know of any diving. So if you're going abroad, you just let them know the provider you're going with, and that you're going to be diving within your qualification limits. Obviously, with abroad, there's the extra of also diving within any legal limits. So some countries have shallower limits, so you might be qualified to 40, but there might be a legal limit of diving to 30. Also, really check your travel insurance and make sure that your diving depth or gases are covered by your travel insurance as well. Each policy is different, and even if your policy says 40, if a legal limit is 30, you need to be very clear what is covered, because normally that would be a 30 limit, not a 40. Anyone using club gases on a club dive? Sophie, Nick said, really? So doing a solo shore dive is a club dive. Solo shore dive is outside of safe diving practices, so it's not a BSAC dive. So there is absolutely no cover. But because it's not a BSAC dive, it shouldn't be done within BSAC, within any club, within any parameters of that, because it's not within safe diving practices. Yes, on the club dive notes. How do we know if someone's using branch gas? I think we're getting semantics of branch gas. Branch gas, you wouldn't be able to prove if someone's using it or not, or empty cylinder. What we're saying is, basically, if you are in a club and you are diving, you should be informing the DO or working within the parameters of the club. I'm the DO for my club, and use the aspect that if any piece of club equipment is used on a dive, then it is a club dive. But if club divers join together to dive and use all their own equipment, then it's not. It's not quite that straightforward. So yes, if club equipment is used, then it is a club dive. But if people are diving with other members of the club or going on a trip that's advertised on a club WhatsApp group, that is a club dive, whether they're using personal equipment or dive equipment, because the DO is aware of the dive. It's on a club WhatsApp group. It's being advertised on a club WhatsApp group. So any dive that is inviting club members to go diving is a branch dive.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, so this is a kind of statement from the safety team at BSAC, saying that if a club were to discourage members from notifying the club or the DO of planned dives outside of the club environment, basically in a court situation, actively avoiding knowledge of dives that are being planned does not negate the responsibility of the DO, and actively avoiding being made aware of planned dives in fact helps make the case for prosecution in the event of an accident or injury, rather than protecting the diving officer from liability. This is because by avoiding being told about the plan, it can be assumed that the DO thinks there is likely to be a deviation from BSAC, safe diving practice, or diving beyond the limits of the diving qualification. So yeah, pretty important. So there are quite a few things to think about, and we will happily, point you in the right direction to make sure that you feel that as a DO you can question your if you've got some people who will consistently dive outside of the branch and do dives that are clearly not in the jurisdiction of the BSAC safe diving practices, then we kind of need you to kind of talk to us about it, and then we can point you in the right direction as to how to just educate these people to understand why and what it is that they're doing wrong that could cause harm, and therefore put our good name into disrepute if there were to be an incident. So that's really important. I think that's it from me, Sophie.
No problem. Sue has asked, can anyone organise a club dive? So really, this is up to the DO and the club as a whole, and what the rules in the club are and the club constitution, how you want to do it. I would encourage anyone to organise a club dive. Maybe those with less experience might need some assistance from more experienced members of the club, and it's the DO that's ultimately responsible for giving the go-ahead to a club dive and appointing a dive manager. There might be a rule in the club that says anyone that's a dive leader and above can appoint a dive manager. It really depends on how the club's set up and what they want to do, but it should be encouraged for people to organise dives and just have that check. It doesn't need to be the experienced divers being the ones that always organise, but it just needs that checkpoint.
Yeah, and to add that to that caveat, so in my one of my older branches, we as junior divers, which as I was back then, we were absolutely encouraged to plan and organise, you know, a weekend of diving. But we'd have somebody sitting on our shoulder who would then take on the mantra of the dive manager when we got to the, you know, the day's diving. But we also, it made us really good about learning what was involved in how to plan and manage, you know, diving for a weekend or a day or liverboard or whatever it happened to be. So it's really important that we bring on our junior divers to help plan. And there's nothing wrong with that. Planning is planning, but, you know, so long as there's somebody there to, you know, make sure that it's all done under the safe diving practices, and then they run it, because obviously a junior diver can't, because they're not a dive manager. So but it's really good learning curve for them. And if any of you had anybody like I did when I first learned to dive, I had a national instructor in my branch who actively got the babies and the beginners to help you know, get the boat down to the wherever we were going, towing it, setting up shot lines, taught us how to, you know, tie knots and everything else, because we were junior divers and we'd offered to organise a weekend. And the organisation of a weekend generally is, you know, getting the people to wherever they need to be and making sure they've got the kit that they need, and then the senior divers kind of take over on the weekend. So I think it's absolutely important that we organise or ask our, you know, any member of the club, if they want to help and organise something, they should have that right to do so.
Then there's a question that's, what about those diving with non-BSAC quals? Well, part of safe diving is if they're diving on non-BSAC quals in the club, they're a BSAC member, so they're doing a club dive. But part of BSAC safe diving is just diving within your qualification. So I started as a PADI advanced open water, and so with a BSAC club, so I was allowed to dive within my PADI advanced open water qualification, which was no deco and 30 meters. So as long as I was diving within my qualification in safe diving, that is what's covered there. Is there anything you wanted to add, Sophie, about other agencies?
No, not really. We embrace bringing other agencies on. We might even be able to, you know, show them how good our safe diving practices are, and they may even cross over. So it's a benefit to everybody. But there's nothing to stop you bringing on somebody from another agency, but they will dive within the safe diving practices of the remit of BSAC, because they've joined a BSAC dive.
And there's a good question here from Ian. Will the DO workshops be open to other officers?
Interesting. So the DO workshop, so anybody who is in a club who is, you know, thinking about becoming a DO or thinking about working towards a DO, there's nothing to stop you coming along and having a listen and taking on board what's being, you know, chatted about and everything else, because you know, if there are people who are willing volunteers to take that mantra up in the future, then, you know, the more information they can get early on, the better. Surely that's a good thing.
Yeah, we might be able to look at doing some that are wider to other officers as well, that are opened out a bit to club committees for the running of diving activities, and look at it that way as well. So yes, I can't see why we wouldn't do it. Leon's asked, what if you're a member of multiple clubs? Should you let the DO of each club know what you're diving abroad? I think you need to pick a club, Leon, to inform. So I think it'd be unnecessary to let everyone know, but let one of your DOs know. And then a really good question about, what about BSAC direct members? Do they need to let the NDO know every time they go diving, Sophie?
So as a BSAC direct member, you've chosen to not be a member of a branch, which is great, and we want you to go diving. We want you to enjoy it, but you've chosen to be a BSAC member, so you still come under the safe diving practices. So yeah, kind of, if you're going to go diving and use safe diving practices, great, don't let me know. But if you want to go outside of that remit, then, and you don't let me know, and something happens, then, you know, we're going to ask the question, why did you not follow safe diving practices? It's as simple as that.
It's a little bit of a different structure. So we're talking about club dives here, what constitutes a club dive. You're not doing club dive if you're BSAC direct and not diving with a club. If you are BSAC direct and you're diving with a club, you're doing a club dive under the auspice of a DO. If you're BSAC direct and you're just going diving, you are covered by your BSAC third-party liability insurance if you're diving within safe diving practices, and you're not if you don't. It's kind of that's what BSAC, that's the cover that BSAC direct members have, and it's not a club diving setup. But BSAC direct members might still dive with a club, in which case they're coming under the club setup. Is that a good synopsis, Sophie?
Yeah, I would say that you've got it knocked on the head.
It'll save you about 1,000 dive plans a week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Listening to this, so John's just asked, would welcome a copy of the background and facts document that Sophie mentioned. Let's be really clear on this, that safe diving practices is the kind of document to go to, and it's guidance, not black and white, and it is guidance for a very clear reason, which is if we say under no circumstances are you to dive past 15 meters in Cape and Ray because we've decided it. If you go to 15.1, it could potentially cause you a load of problems if there was an issue. Whereas if we say you must dive within your qualification limits, and then you take a dynamic risk assessment into account for things, and we give DOs the flexibility to say, well, actually, we're going to do a dynamic risk assessment. I've looked at the plan for the dive, that's okay, and people are diving within their qualification limits, and there's that flexibility, then it actually gives you those parameters, and we support that. We cannot be black and white with you can do this and you can't do that, because it doesn't protect anybody. It actually gives more hard facts to be pushed against people or questioned at a point, and that is why we have the safe diving guidance. And if you look at it very carefully, it says should do this, should do that, and abide by it. And then it gives us that flexibility to say, well, actually the dynamic risk assessment is done here and this would be reasonable to do because of this. So we really will not be going into black and white for these things, and it's for everybody's benefit. Pauline has asked, I've been out of UK diving for 5 years and as an OWI I'm really missing the teaching element. Is there an opportunity to get involved with my local region and also bring myself up to speed when it comes to teaching? Pauline, please get in touch with me, sophie@bsac.com, and I'll come back to you on that. Yes, absolutely, there is. Phil has said he was under the impression that club dive was one that was known and approved by the DO. Is this a sensible guide? Sophie, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's absolutely right. So the DO has the power to approve it. So if it's not under the safe diving practices, the DO has every right to question the whys and wheres and wherefore, and either sanction it or say no, you should not be doing that dive. So a club dive is absolutely sanctioned and approved by the DO. The DO may well appoint a training officer, a dive manager, whatever, but everyone has to look at the safe diving practices and go with what is in there, and that's fact. So yes, you're absolutely right. So yeah, you're right.
Liam, we're not going to go into this one in there. It's very, very specific into lots of details. If you want to discuss, quite happy to discuss, but as you said, we'd need facts, not a whole list of what if this, what if that. That's to be taken offline and have a discussion. Martin, on a club dive abroad, is there a requirement for dive manager sheets to be completed?
Should be. They should be completed. If it's a club dive and you've sanctioned your club to go abroad to wherever, then you absolutely should have the sheets brought back, and they should be, staying in the branch for 7 years in case down the line somebody has an issue. So if you don't have anything recorded, you've got no evidence as to whether that person or anything that happened to that person, was to do with unsafe diving practices. So it's really important. So I'll give you an example on that, Martin. So if you go to you let your club go abroad and they go to, I don't know, let's go Egypt, and then they're all ocean divers and they're trained to go to 20 meters, and then the dive guide says, come on everybody, the sharks are at 30. And somebody has an incident, if there's no report or no paperwork to say that you know, for one reason or another, they dropped to 30 meters and somebody had an incident, then there's no culpability for anybody other than the diving officer, who we would then go back to and go, okay, so there's a bit of a problem. All your divers went to 30 meters and you allowed that to happen. So or alternatively, somebody comes back and then a few weeks later complains that they had a burst eardrum, for instance. If there's nothing recorded, then we can't really help because it's hearsay. So anything that's recorded and written down is evidence, and evidence is fact. Anything that isn't recorded is not fact, and it's hearsay, and we can't act on it.
So there's a reasonably pragmatic approach you could take with this as well, which is that if you're in a group of your club or your divers, then the dive centre or whoever you're diving with are probably going to do log sheets anyway, and they'll probably let you take a photo or do a copy and you can send those back. So it's really straightforward and easy to do if they're dive managing. And then the other thing you could do is, if you're abroad and there's just two of you on a boat or something along those lines, again, it's the centre generally is going to be logging those dives. You can either take a photo, or if there's other names on there and they're not going to share it with you, you can use your own dive logs and then just make a note. So your computer log might be suitable to do that, and just make a note of your gas consumption if you haven't got integrated air in any way, and that will kind of cover off that element for you. And if you've got if you're writing your logs into paper format, or if you're just using your computer downloads, then that will probably help cover that off for you and can be submitted to the club, which makes it really, really simple.
And you've also got the fact that if you don't record them, then at the end of the year, when you look at, you know, what dives the club has done, and you've missed out a whole load of abroad diving, then your statistics aren't, you know, they're not as good as they would be if you'd included every dive that was done under the club auspices. So I would firmly say that they should be recorded.
And then Nigel's just asked for clarification on what is meant by BSAC Direct, because you're in two clubs and you're a direct member of BSAC. So you can kind of be both, Nigel, as you are. You can be a direct member and then dive with clubs, in which case you're going in for club dives. But a lot of BSAC Direct members are BSAC Direct members and are not members of a club. It's so that they can be a member of BSAC. They might be on our instructor trainer scheme and teaching within that environment and then not doing anything else. So they could be direct and then dive outside of the club environment. So BSAC Direct is that membership. If you're a member of clubs, a club, I would look at becoming a club member because it's a lower rate than BSAC Direct membership. So have a look at that, and you can talk to membership about that. That's the end of those questions so far, Sophie. So I'm going to carry on with your section and let you carry on with this, if that's okay, and then we'll pick up any questions that come in.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about club dives, and we'll quite happily clarify, and we can do some more information on that, and we'll probably try and do a blog on it. And any of the specific questions, including yours, Liam, if you come back to me over this week or to DRT, we'll endeavour to go through those. Club culture and development then. So this kind of ties on really. This is about how a club could operate within safe diving practices, encouraging it, but encouraging going diving. So really what I wanted to, I'm going to ask you a question, Sophie, actually, which might help to kind of put this into context, because what we don't want to get bogged down with is lots of rules and regulations. We want everyone to be safe, but we want to encourage diving, and we want people to go diving. Why did you join a BSAC club? What do you like about being a club member?
So let me give you a potted history of my career in diving. So I learnt PADI out in Australia, where I was on my own. I learnt to dive with a fellow backpacker 100 years ago in Cairns or Townsville or wherever it was. And to basically put the point, she went back to the interior of Canada and hasn't done any dives, and I've managed and clocked up 3,000 since I first started. So I I then joined a company in London who had their own sub-aqua club. And once I got into the club, and it took a while because they were like, no, sorry, we're too busy. We're too busy doing, well, in those days it was club diver training, but ocean diver equivalent. And eventually I went back and I said, yeah, but I've already got a qualification. And they were like, oh, God welcomed me with open arms. And do you know what? I did not look back. So I froze to death for the first few months in a ill-fitting 7 mil, not seven semi-dry. It was just a wetsuit, and did one dive out of the two each day. And then I bought my first dry suit, and I actively involved myself into the club, and loved it. And then took my club instructor or open water instructor, and moved on through the stages fairly quickly, because I absolutely loved the club culture. And if you've got a good club and you've got good officers who are there to support you, they really, all they did was they involved us, all us beginners, from the start. And we got to do stuff that I would never have thought I would have done earlier on in my career. So I learnt to drive the boat really early. I learnt loads of skills which I'd never have learnt outside of the club situation. So for me, it was the grounding of me as a diver now. And I've been all over the world. I've dived, I've done all sorts of stuff, I've commercially dived and everything else. And for me, just going back into a branch situation is absolutely phenomenal. And you can make it likewise to any club that you join. So see the RNLI as a club. And I was trying to run a meeting last night with Mary was on board, and I think Andy might have been. And so the Coast Guard came for a visit because we've got a new building, and all these people are people that you'd never normally meet, and they come from all walks of life, and they all bring with them loads of really good stuff. And so you learn and you develop a lot quicker if you're in a branch or club environment than you would if you were on your own. And for me has made me who I am today as a diver with hopefully loads of experience. I've tried loads of stuff. I've been invited to learn as much as possible, and now I'm in the process of, or have been for a few years, giving back to train other people up. And I think that's what the club culture brings, and you can't get it from anywhere else.
I think that's a really valid piece, that the club culture is about. It's a lot of, we understand everybody's a volunteer. I know now I'm employed, but I'm not employed by my club. It's still a volunteer role, and the ITS is still a volunteer role. And I think what you'll find from most people is they say how much they enjoy teaching, and they love teaching, and also being part of a club. You meet so many different interesting people, you do so many different things. And I think with diving, you spend quite a lot of time together, because often it's about going away for a weekend or going away on a dive trip. And we all know that the UK liverboards aren't quite like the super yachts that you might see on TV programs abroad. They're fishing trawlers, and I think it's that whole camaraderie thing, but also the loads of different skills, because seamanship skills, as Sophie said, the boats, the seamanship skills, all of those different things. I've still not nailed photography. Despite desperate efforts of people to help me in that, but I've seen some amazing photos from other people, and I think it's about fun, and that's what we've got to remember with the club culture. We do have these safety parameters, but it's about fun, and it's about facilitating, and it's about inclusion as well. And as Sophie said, it's really important from the early members that then they're allowed to get involved, and that keeps that going. I'm also going to put Andy on the spot here as well, because I know that he's very involved with his own club, and just ask Andy, what is it that you like about club diving?
Thanks, Sophie. And I appreciate the question. As you know, but for the benefit of colleagues, fellow members on the call, I'm a DO myself with my branch, Vale Royal, in North Cheshire, at 35 members, and am an active open water and twin set instructor within that branch. And I think it's very much what Sophie and you have just outlined. I really, really enjoy spending time with people starting out on their diving career. you do, and I am at the moment engaged with a wide variety of different individuals at different ages, different walks of life, from an extremely keen 15-year-old with whom I can barely keep up as they fin off ahead of me, to someone who's retired and has now trying something out that they've been really wanting to do for many, many years. And people learn in different ways, at different speeds, and find different aspects of the sport both interesting but also challenging, of course, as well. And I think that real variety is what I find stimulating, whilst trying to make sure that we keep everyone safe and allow them to progress at a speed that they're comfortable with. And at the same time, just as a few of us did, and I was with Sophie between Christmas and New Year, still continuing to learn and do new things. So I haven't been weeding underwater previously, but on the 30th of December, I was with Sophie and other fellow divers at Llyn Padarn in the glacial lake just beside Llanberis there, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a 6-meter rummage in mud pulling out invasive species, something I had not done before. So I then, again, part of the challenge being a DO myself and within my own branches, both trying to make sure we continue to bring new divers through, but also finding those opportunities to do new things, always massively exciting things, but certainly new challenges and new opportunities. And indeed, when it came to Llyn Padarn, there were half a dozen members of my own branch who said, "Oh yeah, between Christmas and New Year, I'll give that a try." So and great fun was had by all. So but yeah, still very much motivated. I don't think I'll ever clock up the 3,000 that you have, Sophie. I've just ticked past 1,000, and that's me. But yeah, and looking forward to the season as we continue, all of us. But no, thanks for the question.
And I think, as Andy said, Llyn Padarn's quite a good example, actually, of something that everyone can get involved with. It's 2 to 6 meters of water, the invasive species project, but actually we got 26 people together from 5 different clubs, a university club and other clubs, and that camaraderie, and everyone worked really well together on the same project, and it was, you get the sense of achievement from it. So I think that's really important. Mary, I'm going to put you on the spot as well here. What do you like about club diving? Because you were London #1 before you moved up to the Northwest.
Yes. So yeah, I was. So I think I think I can thank London #1 Club and diving, obviously, for ending up in my role and working for BSAC. So what I was, I think, 21 when I joined London #1 Club, and was living in London and working on Diver magazine. So it completely changed my life, and I think it can change everybody's lives. I think what I love about our clubs is so many different people from so many backgrounds, all getting into a boat and going diving and enjoying our sport and generally getting on. And so I know we see a different side a little bit in HQ when we're sort of dealing with some complexities in the club sometimes, but overall our clubs are just the best thing about BSAC, and absolutely love it. And I think that the more I still would love to see more people learning to dive through clubs, and then going out with friends and just really enjoying it. And I think it just brings, I think, one of our logos used to be Dive with Friends. And I know sort of BSAC, we move on, but actually I think what's lovely to see is just a group of friends going diving, and what you can sort of discover, learn about yourself, the world, the water, the oceans. It's just amazing. And I think we all did the Llyn Padarn event because it was sort of organised by you, Sophie, but I obviously was just helping kind of sort things out. But it was great to see, there was 30 people, I think, or 26, all from different clubs, all just getting on with it. And it's just great, isn't it? And when I was getting coffees for people, because it was really cold for you all, I think it was nice. The cafe owner said, "Oh gosh, they're a really friendly bunch, aren't they, divers?" And it's really nice to see everyone getting on and just getting on with their sport. And I thought, yeah, that's what BSAC is, club diving for me. And so the more we get people joining clubs, the better.
Yeah, so
keep
I'd also
recruiting.
like to, I'd just also like to say that, so I sat on a plane and coming back from Egypt last week, and we knew that we were coming back into the storm from hell on Storm Garotti or whatever it was on Thursday night. So we were a bit nervous coming back into Bristol. And so there was a woman in the seat next door to me, looking out the window a bit nervously, and she's like, "All right, I'm at Bude, I live in Bude," and I said, "Oh, so you're going to drive back tonight?" And she was like, "I don't know, I might make it to Exeter, or I might give up." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's if we get to Bristol." So it was all a bit grim, and then we sat in silence for the kind of 6-hour journey, which on a EasyJet seat is long enough, I can tell you. But as we started to do the ascent, and the female pilot was brilliant, and she was like, "Yeah, so we hope to get down on time," and blah blah blah. I'm trying to allay our nervousness of the fact that we're probably all going to die. We started chatting, and it turned out that she was Bude-Sub-Aqua Club. And I sort of said, "Oh, well, I'm in a local club in Dartmouth," and we got talking, and it was like, we've just had 5 hours of silence doing our own thing, but actually we had everything in common, and then got yakking away, which probably allayed our nervousness for the touchdown, which was hairy to say the least, and then the onward travel. So how great is that? So you can be anywhere, and somebody's put, our club goes skiing and blah 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 and do everything else. Our club does that as well. So if we're not diving, we're skiing in the winter, and I know Sophie's off on Saturday skiing, whether it's
They're
with
all
the
divers.
they're all divers. So
Yes.
and it's all about our culture and how we got that together, and we wouldn't get it anywhere else. So bring it on.
So I think it is, if people are reading the chat, that Nigel has put that their club covers a range of social events such as clay pigeon shooting, dinners out, skiing, etc., because it can do a lot of outdoor activities. Our club does as well, and I know Sophie's does, a lot of the clubs do, and it is, that's expanding beyond the diving and keeping that camaraderie between everyone, which is fantastic and really good. So just checking if there's any other questions. Sue's put that she's loved every minute and made lifelong friends in clubs, and that really is Eugene with his club curry nights. I've been to a club curry night with Eugene when I lived in the Midlands, and I'll never get over egg on a curry. I have no idea why that was a thing. But it is that friendship, I think, that's really important, and that helps grow clubs. And I think this is where, if we just come back to the club participation as well, there's a duty of care there, which sounds really formal, but this just means we have a duty of care to other divers, other snorkelers, the people in the club, and ourselves as well, when we're in the club environment. So it's taking, I think, rather than taking this formal principle, just take that general principle of duty of care, and treating other people well and looking after people is really the most important ethos. And that kind of covers everything, which is just treat people well and look after people, and then clubs will expand and grow. And I think we've covered it with some of the things that we've talked about as well here, which is that this is the club environment is people in their free time. It's outside of work, it's doing something they love, it's doing something they want to do. So people want to be members of clubs that are fun and have activities and foster that environment. So if you can foster that environment in your club and make it somewhere people want to be, then that encourages activities, and it encourages more people to join and more people to participate. So it's keeping that encouragement and momentum going, which is hard work, and we all know it's hard work, but it's how we do that. And we will do more sharing ideas this year as well, from clubs, and hope to support clubs very heavily.
And,
so I think
also, on the back of that, so there are people in branches who struggle with life in general or whatever, and so more and more we are, as club members, there to help people out. And it may not be a diving issue, it might be a personal issue or a work issue or whatever it happens to be, a difficulty of some sort. And so Gen Z, okay, they're onto their own. Sorry if there's anyone here who's a Gen Z person, but they you know, we're all there to help, and sometimes it's better to be able to talk to somebody in a branch who isn't a personal family friend or whatever, who can help you to get through whatever difficulty you're going through. And I think we are really good at doing that as well. And that comes under that duty of care before Sophie went for the fun factor, and it is really important.
Okay. So moving on as well, just to make people aware of, you know, beyond the club environment, there's also a lot to get involved with BSAC, and it's getting involved with the wider community as well. And we appreciate, you know, clubs come first, and that's really important. But there's also the National Diving Committee. So Sophie, do you want to explain what the National Diving Committee, or NDC, is, and what their remit is, and what kind of things they do? Oh, have we lost Sophie?
Sorry. Interestingly, sorry, I was on mute. The NDC, or National Diving Committee, is appointed by me. So when I took post, I then so the previous NDO, they basically fire, which is rather a bad word, but they go, thank you very much, you're gone. The new NDO will bring in their new team, and so it's kind of cool. So you have this kind of a little bit of a power to go, okay, who do I want to help me make BSAC a better place and make diving safe and everything else? So we look at there's some fundamental aspects that we have to have. So we have to have chief examiners in all the levels of diving. So first class chief examiner, national instructor chief examiner. That goes with the post. So I get to step into that role, which is kind of a bit of a learning curve, but cool. And then advanced instructor, open water instructor, and then there's safety. There's diving for all, so anybody with a disability. It's really important that we look after our members. And then there's projects that are going on, and then we've got military. So we have a massive military arm that we need to look after, and the military have always said they'll go with the national governing body. So so we've got Ginger Cook, who's looks after Joint Services Sub-Aqua Diving Centre, and inputs loads of really good stuff for us to kind of help him to develop the military as they go through their process. And then there's technical, so there's technical arm. So I've appointed all these people, and not necessarily all on my own, but I've kind of sought guidance, and then we've offered out. So we've currently got an application out for open water chief instructor, because Sam has stepped down. So some people step down, it's a voluntary role. We can't ask them to stay on for 3 years or however long I'm in post for. So so most of the NDC are national instructors, because they have the experience to give back to you know, making us a better place. But sometimes we have doctors, for example, who really want to give something towards the kind of safety and you know, first aidy type stuff, and so we've got several people who are on board who are going to be advisors to the safety team, and therefore we hope to update all our first aid and all that kind of level of qualification, so that we're in the real world, we're doing what the national first aid group are telling us to do. So whether we stick with rescue breaths or we drop them, that's not down to us. That's down to the kind of committees out there that guide us. But we need also doctors to help us make sure that we're doing the right thing. So the National Diving Committee is really important to help everybody grow and learn, and make sure that we're at the forefront of what BSAC as a national governing body needs to do. And if we don't follow those processes, then you know, we're not there. So I've got a really good team. I'd like to think they come from all walks of life. So whatever anyone's day job is, that's irrelevant. It's what they give to me as a volunteer, just as I am. So anyone comes with a different background, whether it's diving or whether it's the knowledge that they can bring to that committee is really important. So we've currently got some projects going on with obviously the safety group. So we're updating all the first aid for divers and everything else, but we're also looking at advanced divers. So I've got a regional coach, a national instructor, David George, who's running with that. We're redoing snorkelling, so we've got a good team on that now, which is kind of half BSAC HQ, because they can run with it during the sort of day while people are at work, but also the willing volunteers who are helping out. So if anyone wants to come and give their all, come and let me know, because I can attach you to the respective projects that are going on, and we're always up for somebody who's good at writing, good at formulating plans, or designing new courses. So we're always willing to take you on. It is volunteer role though, but we'll look after you, and we'll bring you to a meeting. We'll try and make sure that all your ideas are heard, and it's really important that we do that, because we are a club and it's all about us working together as a club.
I think that's well said. And just a plug for the Go Dive show. If you want to find out more about the advanced diver updates, David George is doing a presentation workshop on that at the Go Dive show, and the timing of that will be released shortly. So come and find out more about it, and we'll also release after the Go Dive show a bit more information on that. Thanks, Sophie. So I'm going to just also, because we've got quite a lot going on at the moment, and these are things that people can easily get involved with, ask Mary to just talk a little bit about Marine Champions and some of the current environment work that's ongoing.
Yes, thanks, Sophie. So just a brief sort of update on our Marine Champions. So part of the strategy for BSAC this year is to focus on the environment and what we as an organisation and our members can do to help it, and to report on it, because obviously all of us as divers have seen over the years the changes, and diving with a purpose is something that we know that our clubs are really keen to do activity wise. So Marine Champions is about allocating someone within your club, so it's not an officer role, but it is somebody in the club, one person that could be your your Marine Champion or your ambassador within your club, to encourage club members to do some environmental dives, litter picks, beach cleans, whatever you want, and to we're doing Marine Champion evenings once a month, and we've just hit number 63 Marine Champions within the club. So if you're interested, you can contact myself, and then we can talk you through it. You just fill out a form, and then you have to get somebody in your club to allocate, to confirm that they'll support you being the Marine Champion and championing environment projects, diving with purpose, and really doing some sort of work with us. We're also looking at setting up some campaigns this year. One's going to be dive in and litter out. We're looking at grant funding for some of these events as well, and anything really that you feel you'd like to get involved with. So I can speak to you independently. I'll put my mobile in, my email in chat, and then you can get hold of me and we can sort of update you more, and then you could come along to one of our calls and just see if you'd like to get involved. So we're just trying to spread the word at the moment. We have also at the dive show on the Sunday, we're doing a Marine Champ recruitment. So if you're interested in finding out more, you can come along to that. So we've already got the the diving officer workshops at the dive show as well, and the workshop that Sophie's mentioned about advanced divers. So I think we're going to be releasing those dates and in an email very shortly, in the next few days, and you can book on these workshops at the dive show. So you could come along and hear more about Marine Champions on the Sunday at the dive show. So thanks very much.
Brilliant, thanks Mary. So that brings us on to also BSAC Council, which is obviously another that works in conjunction with HQ and the National Diving Committee. But to tell you a bit more about that, I'm going to ask Andy, who's the chair of Council, to just talk a little bit about responsibilities and the upcoming elections.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sophie. So I suspect quite a few members will be familiar with Council, but for those of you on the call who aren't, basically the Council is the board of directors. BSAC is a company, so it requires a board under the Companies Act, and that's the legislation that sort of governs how we are governed. The majority of the members of Council are members of BSAC, and those that are members are elected, and the election takes place every year. And if you are elected to a position on Council, and the electorate is the whole of the membership of BSAC, and it's done electronically each year, you're then on Council for 3 years, and you can seek a further term if you wish, to a maximum of 3 terms of 3 years. There can be gaps between that, and if sometimes people come on for 3 years, take a break, and then come back in terms of their balancing out their other volunteer roles. But in terms of consecutive times, and I think we've got certainly one member who will have done a full 9-year stint, 3 sets of 3 years, when they eventually stand down next year, if memory serves. And the point about having a board of directors is our accountability is ultimately to you, our members. You vote us in based on the manifestos or our proposals we put forward for our roles. But what we do absolutely look for in and what we encourage council members to set out in your, or prospective council members to set out when you're thinking of election, is what is it that you want to bring to the role. The role of directors is, we don't run the organisation day to day. That is the responsibility of colleagues in HQ, led very ably by Mary, our CEO. Our responsibility is overarching direction of strategy, supporting Mary in the development of that, and also providing a level of assurance and oversight and monitoring of the work of the headquarters team, and in particular how we are delivering our value back to our members. And the critical piece for that is the strategy, and the strategy which is published exists to provide a framework that sets out the priorities of how we'll spend our resources and how we will spend our time in terms of supporting the future of the organisation. And the key skills we're looking for within council members are those that you would find in any board of directors. We're looking to invite and encourage colleagues to participate and join who've got a good insight into organisational strategy. In particular, at the moment, we're encouraging members to put themselves forward if they've got direct experience of actually overseeing or shaping the future of member-based organisations, because that is what we are, and that brings particular challenges in a world in which many people are seeking more transactional interactions. It does challenge member-based organisations and how we think of ourselves in terms of how we remain relevant to the wide range of people who really want to participate and enjoy our sport of scuba diving and snorkelling. And we're also interested in those who have got a particular set of skills, which will be set out on the electoral pages, which you can see more about as well. So I'm always available and always happy to have a chat with anyone informally and privately who's perhaps thinking of putting their name forward. Always happy to have a conversation. I recall that the timetable for the electoral process this year means you would need to put your name forward and register your interest by the end of this month. And I've certainly had several contacts from members of BSAC who would like to learn a little bit more and are sort of interested in asking about the level of commitment on what they might be able to, and setting out also what they want to bring to the role. Certain roles on council are quite specialist or require specialist skills. So, for example, Sophie Rennie is a member, for a key member of council. She's the National Diving Officer. We have another role, the Honorary Treasurer, fulfilled by Richard, very ably and very committedly by Richard Pettifer, and he's an accountant. And we have other roles which call for certain types of experience. But the general membership of council is open to anyone with a keen interest to support our future and help shape our future direction. and always, as I say, happy to have a conversation. Levels of commitment vary depending upon the level of the role, but at the very least, it's about engaging with our bi-monthly council meetings, which take place every 2 months. And usually you get involved in some specialist work within some of the committee structures that we have, which might associated with our commitments internationally, or indeed with regards to supporting HQ operations, or in some particular ways, which is a form of volunteer activity, which you can expect to see. So as Mary's just mentioned in the chat, there is a blog that's gone out with links. There's a few points there with additional information. And as always, I'm always happy to answer any questions that colleagues may have. And if you don't put anything on the chat right now, don't worry, just write to me, which is chair at BSAC. And then, you know, that'll get picked up. I'll pick that up and I'll happily have a chat offline with anybody who is interested in learning more. And I should have added the .com, chair at bsac.com. Okay, that's me, I think, Sophie, but pass the baton back to you. Thank you.
So just how that kind of pulls together really is that council are elected board of directors who deal with all the business decisions and the strategy going forwards and really foist the direction of the organisation. And the National Diving Committee are also volunteers who are in positions who have specific expertise in project-based diving training developments under the remit of the NDO. So those are kind of the two key bodies that also work really closely with HQ. So I just wanted to talk really briefly about regions as well, because as part of really working with Sophie and HQ, we have regional coaches and regional teams, and these are really to support clubs on a more local level. You'll hopefully see we're going to be getting more active regionally over this year. We've got plans to do more interacting with the different clubs and also activities, and we have some key regional events that have actually been organised by different regions that are taken on. So there's Kerno Dive Fest, which happens every year, really big event in Cornwall, getting all the clubs together. Northwest Dive Fest at Cape and Ray, organised by the Northwest team. Then we had a first last year of Scuba and Snork Fest, which was in the East Midlands at Spring Lakes. So really, you know, big events trying to get clubs together just to go diving. And also our regions run our skill development courses. So all of the skill development courses that are run regionally, run by the regional teams and staffed by the regional teams, volunteer instructors, giving the opportunity to do additional courses outside of the club environment. So really, really important. And if you're looking at further development in terms of instructor development, or you want to get more involved with BSAC in your region and help support these events, or you've got specific expertise because they're also looking for people that are just great communicators, great organisers, social media, those kind of things. There's also getting involved in the regional team at a local level. So I think the best person to talk about what a regional coach is someone that's been a regional coach. Don't worry, Eugene, I'm not going to put you on the spot right now. I'm going to ask Sophie Rennie again, who has been Southwest regional coach. So Sophie, do you want to just talk a little bit about your experience as regional coach?
Yeah. So thanks. So I was regional coach for 5 years, although we've changed that now. So we try and do 3 years. And then we, bring somebody on and coach them in, and then they take their new ideas forward. Because I think, so when I was regional coach, there were regional coaches who were kind of in post for like 20 years, and it was their way or no way. So things have moved on. But more importantly, what you do is you gain that responsibility, and you go, okay, so how can I make the region better? And I'm in the Southwest, so it's a big region, and the mileage is massive. And in the old days, we'd drive to various clubs and go and see them of an evening, and sometimes they would see us as being somebody to kind of check up on you, and that's absolutely not what it is. So it's really important that what you have to understand is there's some clubs who are absolutely doing everything fine and they're all good, we still need to visit them to pick up on the good ideas that they've got, to then take them to the clubs that are maybe struggling and feed those ideas in, or invite the branch that's doing really well to go and visit the branch that's struggling and help them out. So I developed a team of area coaches in those days who were my kind of helpers out, all again voluntary. We'd meet kind of every 6 months in generally a pub somewhere in the region and talk about which branches were struggling more often than those who weren't struggling, because the guys that don't struggle, do they need so much help? No, probably not. The struggling branches, we would say, what do you need? Right, we'll send in our guys who are all probably advanced instructors, or at least minimum open water instructors, who can maybe help to feed in some SDCs and bring the branch on and develop the branch members to be able to develop on their own and give their own courses without our help. And that's really what the region does. So it finds the people that are struggling. It brings the people who are not struggling to help those that are in need, if you like. So again, we're looking back at, you know, the mental health of the club as a whole, and if a club is struggling, we'll do our utmost to help them out. And I think that's really important. So more often than not these days, things have moved on. So things are done on Teams or on chat or, you know, WhatsApp or whatever. But you know, it's a bit like the regions, some regions say, well, we haven't ever seen our regional coach. Well, did you ask them to come? No. Well, therefore, you know, you're obviously doing okay. So the communication goes two ways. So if the regions are struggling, or a club in a region is struggling, get in touch with the regional coach and they will do their utmost to come and see you, find out what the problem is and try and fix it if they can. But if you don't get in touch, then we don't know, and it's under the radar, and we're not psychic, but we can kind of, sometimes it's too late to help a branch out. We don't want that to happen. We want to get there before that branch gets into difficulties. So can you please, you know, tell your branches that if there is a problem, come and get in touch. We'll put you in touch with the regional coach. They'll do what they can, and hopefully we'll sort it before it gets, you know, any further down the line where it might not be able to be sorted. And that's the bottom line. You know, we're there for you. The regional coaches are all really experienced people, and they're there to help, and they're also volunteers. So they wouldn't do it if they didn't love it, and that's the point.
I think that's really important. I was just in the middle of answering something from Dave Taylor, who said, have we abandoned regional area coaches? Because I was an area coach as well. The answer to that is no, we haven't. Absolutely, area coaches are very welcome. What we're trying to do, though, is take each region differently, Dave, because I think you probably understand more than most that no region's the same and they've all got different needs. And that could be, if you take Scotland, for example, the travel geographically is more challenging between clubs. They're much further spread out. However, they've got a lot of them have got access to amazing open water all year round in the terms of locks and shelter. So what we are trying to do this year is take each region individually and look at what the needs of the clubs are, and what then the regional team needs to be to support them. So we'd really like feedback from clubs and individuals on what they'd like to see in the region. And it might not be club visits, but it might be maybe just dive days that are located somewhere that people can drop into in clubs, and then they can have that social element. Or it might be more formalised presentations, or it might be more of a certain STC. It will be different in every region. So we want to try and support that in the location rather than roll out a complete program that suits everyone, because there won't be such a thing. However, some coaches will want area coaches, some will want specialists. So if I take that Northwest as an example, their current structure is that they've got somebody that looks after more of the tech courses, that leads those. They still bring in new instructors, but organises and leads those. Someone that looks after seamanship, so they've got specialists. whereas other regions have got key people in different locations that can cover maybe a further east or a further north area of the location. So really, it's just really kind of tailoring it is what we want to do. So we'll carry on doing that, and we'll just take as much feedback as we possibly can on that. And one of the things I just did want to mention as well is not forgetting centres as well. So as divers, we can't really survive without centres. We need somewhere to get kit serviced. If we haven't got a compressor, we need somewhere to get air from or other gas, buy equipment from. And we've got some really good BSAC centres, and they can be support mechanisms as well for training. So if clubs are ever going through a phase where they haven't got enough instructors, they can do training and in tandem with the club and drop back into the club. So it's really, I'm not saying you have to use centres, but we want to support our centres as well, because they kind of give us the infrastructure, especially for smaller clubs and facilities, to really carry on with the dive industry. And we want to support the dive industry as a whole. So don't rule out centres. Don't feel like centres are going to take everything away. We've got some clubs that have got really good relationships and partnerships. It used to be centre branch partnership, that have partnerships with their local centres, and that can be really fruitful for both entities, and it can really help support with the diving side of things and the training side of things. So if you want to learn more about how centres and clubs have worked well together, then please just contact me and we can talk about some examples. Or if you want to know if there's any centres that have done particularly well with clubs in your region or close to you, then please just get in touch again and we can help and support with that. But we've got some really, really strong centres that are delivering and helping support either SDCs or with ocean diver training, so that clubs can focus on sports diver and higher up, or vice versa. So it's really, really worth just thinking about centres as well. I think probably that's everything. We just kind of, I know it's been an hour and a half, so on time, but we wanted to kind of just make sure that we've got some key topics that we're asked about on quite a regular basis. I can't see any other questions in the chat, but please feel free to put any more questions in the chat. Okay, Dave says club visits are really useful. Okay, well we can catch up on that. Oh, Leon, I'll come back to you on that tomorrow if that's okay, on the packs. It'll be back to where it was. That just leaves me to say really, thank you for all giving your evening to listen to us. If you've got any topics that you'd like to us to cover in future, then please let us know and we'll be happy to tailor it to the topics that you want us to cover. You can always ask us questions, so feel free to contact us anytime and we'll be happy to answer. And enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully we will see you or speak to you all soon in some club, region, dive environment.